Welcome back to the Nomadic Nurse Podcast. I'm your host, Melanie, where we talk everything in faith, everything in health, everything in love. And we are here to let you know that I got a coffee brand. What? I just started a coffee brand. This has been in the making for almost a year, I would say. And I'm working on it with my partner, Kelly, who has been on the podcast before. Shout out to her. And it just tastes so good. Oh, if you all know me, y'all know me. I love me some good coffee. So we are going to give you some more details in that regard. But today we are going to talk about something, I got some explaining to do. I haven't been on the pod very much. It went on ice a little bit, and I apologize for that. I know some of y'all really look forward to hearing these, and it was hard for me for the past couple of months because God pulled me out of something. In all transparency, I've been this is a huge trial and error thing when it comes down to business and opening pods. And one thing that is important with it is consistency. And that was the one where I lacked. The schedules were crazy. Things have been wild, but it's still no excuse. But things that I've also realized is things that needed to change a little bit. I am taking a route in business that I'm very excited for, but it required a lot of my attention. And also the travel nursing stuff, I'm learning to juggle it all. It's possible. Just this whole work-life balance thing when it comes down to entrepreneurship is pretty much non-existent. However, it's about finding a balance in many aspects of your life. If you're going into entrepreneurship, balance is a very, very, very different game. It is not the same as balance when you work a 9 to 5. And it's not to shade it, saying that it's not it's not as important. In fact, if that's what your calling is, then that is what your calling is, or something else, then that's it. This is just strictly if you're going into entrepreneurship, y'all, it is not the same type of balance that you're supposed to balance. Work-life balance don't exist in entrepreneurship. However, for my people that are working with me, my team, I do think that they need to understand work-life balance. However, for me in this role, I'm still adjusting. I've been an entrepreneur 100% since September 2024. It's crazy that I've done this, and it's crazy that God has put me here. I'm in the process of learning every single day. And you'll learn more about yourself than you will learn in anything. And stripping myself from my corporate life, which again, that had its season and I loved it. And what I mean by corporate, it's not really the same. It's hospital, in all fairness. It's hospital. And I didn't really do like a 9 to 5. I was never a day shifter, none of that. But my corporate life still had my entrepreneurship, and now I'm 100% into entrepreneurship. That life taught me so much, but then transitioning to 100% entrepreneur means that if I don't do the work, it doesn't get done. Or if I don't delegate the task, it doesn't get done. And that's the biggest reality, because at the end of the day, I'll go to work, I'll make sure, my bare minimum is met if that's what it calls for. Things will be met, but I get paid at the end of the day, versus when it's a pure, versus when you're the owner of everything and you call the shots of your own company, of your own life. If you don't do it, it don't get done. Therefore, you don't get paid. If you don't look for contracts, I ain't going to go down a contract to get paid. So it's a lot of that, but also I learned an immense about myself. And the one thing that I've learned is that there are a lot of inner wounds to heal. A lot. And entrepreneurship has opened it up. Well, how does this affect my personal life? Well, let me tell you a story. your girl here, has this thing called childhood trauma, like everyone. Not saying that my parents were bad. No, let's make that very clear. When we talk about childhood trauma, we ain't talking about how terrible your parents are. It's some cases it's like that, but in a lot of cases it ain't that as well. You gotta keep in mind that your parents have you, and you don't come with an instruction manual. And certain things, they'll make some very innocent mistakes because they're learning how to deal with their traumas and their issues from their past. And I have to say, I grew up in a very blessed house. I grew up in a very blessed environment. Both of my parents came from two very, very, very polar opposite lives, and they've created this one life together. Grew up in completely different countries. On top of it, one was a third world, one was US and North America, Canada as well. And they had to learn to synergistically work together and to raise me and my brother. Now, not everything's perfect, and there's a lot of things that when you're going on your walk with God that you're unlearning. Not saying that, unlearning is probably hard. No, not probably. Unlearning is 1000% harder than learning. Like, I'm going to give it at that. Unlearning things is so much harder because keep in mind, you're not just unlearning habits that were passed down. You're also unlearning certain methods that you grew up with. Like, for example, phones. Let's take this. I didn't have this growing up. I didn't have a phone growing up. I didn't have I didn't get a cell phone until what? I think I got a prepaid thing at the age of 13, just so that if I were going to Lerone, I was accessible, but that's as far as it really went. I have to adjust my life to phones. Today, kids have phones, and as great as it may be in certain aspects, there's so much terror with it in other ways. So, but again, back to this situation, I'm really learning. I'm really learning the whole aspect of unlearning. So what is unlearning? Unlearning is pretty much removing old habits, removing old ways that you had growing up, or how you were raised in certain fields, whether it be in the professional field, whether it be your personal life or wherever. You have to unlearn certain things because you've learned them a certain way, and they're either never been good or they're no longer appropriate for this time frame. And that is a lot of what I've been doing. So not only am I unlearning things about what it's like to be in a corporate life and guaranteed a salary, things like that, versus going into entrepreneurship where I have to make sure that I'm fed, and the pursuit is a lot more intense. And there's a level of unlearning there. And again, unlearning is harder than learning by far, because I was like, wait, this is what I'm so used to. And now all of a sudden it's gone. For example, I'll give you a great example. My grandpa, he has dementia, and he has to unlearn that he can drive a car. He can't drive a car anymore. Sorry, Grandpa. But he's at that stage in his life. He's unable to drive a car given how confused he gets, but he may know that the physicality of driving, that man's been driving in that same neighborhood in a Honda Civic for God knows how long. Not that Honda Civic, but he's just been recurring Honda Civics. And now it's his life. He has to, because we have to remind him every day, you don't have a car anymore. The level of unlearning, because not only is he was living a certain way for such a long period of time, now he's unlearning that he's like, oh, I can't drive anymore. And that's a very hard thing for him. Very, 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 very hard thing for him. That was his pride. That was what kept him independent, and he's losing his independence. And there's a level of that I feel where there's a certain level of, it's pretty much the opposite for me, actually. I'm learning a lot of dependence. I'm learning how to not be dependent on certain things and people, and crutches in life, and I have to be more independent. And that's like significantly more independent, because if I don't look for a contract, I don't get paid. I don't get money, or I don't any of that. And that was one aspect of many things of my life, because also God is also working on me. I've been off of work for 2 months because, the glory to God, I can afford it because of the career that I've chosen, and being a travel nurse, I'm able to be off for 2 months. I worked very hard to get here, very, very hard. However, these 2 months didn't call me to just simply relax. It was a 2 months of pure heavy duty reflection on my life. Huge. And at the beginning, was fluffy, it was good. However, I was battling my own things to unlearn, and it made me frustrated. Like, I was mad. And then divine timing. Okay, good. And then after, all of a sudden, I'm feeling anxious at a certain point. And that, I just got over my bout of anxiety. Don't consider myself an anxious person, but guess what? At 33 years old, I am an anxious person. Wow. Like, I'm high strung. Yes, I have a lot of energy. Yes, I'm go. If y'all know who I am, and if y'all know me, you know I'm a passionate individual, but anxiety is not something that's on my resume at all. However, one thing that I noticed is that there's this habit that I had where when I'd be anxious, I tried to recycle it and put that energy into somewhere else, when it's not necessarily healthy at all times. And I used to be like, take that negative energy, recycle it, and put it towards something that's good. In a lot of aspects, it's okay. But there were certain things that I was just covering up with wounds and with bandages that needed some really deep surgery. And that is how I felt. And I felt like in the last month and a half, it's just been cutting through all of these issues. And keep in mind, I'm in a profession where burnout is extremely prominent. It's happened to me several times. And I don't say, and I'm not saying that with pride. I'm saying that because it's the real truth, because I fell on my own understanding so many times. And now that I'm in certain extraction phases of my life, where certain parts of me, I'm in grief, I'm mourning the certain versions of me, even though they needed to go. And I knew that they needed to go, which also means that certain things need to be unlearned, which means that certain habits needed to stop, and certain methods needed to be, like, I can't do certain things anymore. I don't have the energy or the time, because if I go and do this thing, I'm wasting my time from doing something that's got my God-given purpose. And I have to have extreme discernment. And as you're going through this creates a heavy duty of anxiety. At least it did for me. And learning how to apply your discernment, it's hard. And luckily, I learned to get a team on board. So I started hiring a team. I have a financial department. I have I have a manager. I have somebody who helps me with my social media. I have my help with my content creation. And we have been getting the ball rolling, because I want to be able to offer you guys a service. I want to be able to offer you guys a product, which is coming soon. Very, very excited for all of that. But at the end of the day, it required me to stop, reflect, and be in my moment with God. And sometimes those moments with God really were, I was getting heavily checked. And it's anxiety inducing, because I'm someone that's very condemning on myself, extremely condemning on myself, to the point where it's so damaging that it will put me in an anxious thread. And it gives me the right to be condemning towards others, especially who are really close. And that's the issue, because I hold myself to that standard. And because I hold myself to that standard, I think that everybody should hold themselves to that standard. But it's not always the truth, and that's not fair to the person, because their journey is not my journey. And I have to unlearn that, right? And it's hard. It's hard because I'm hard on myself. So it led me in a very anxious place because this is something that's very, very deep rooted in me. And I think that it's important to share with you guys because I want to strive for excellence. And this is the epitome and the worst thing about perfection is that perfection does not perfection can actually retract us from moving forward because it needs to be perfect, it needs to be sent out. At the end of the day, like, yes, it's got to be good, yes, it's got to be to a standard, but perfection, only thing that's perfect is God. That is it. So I'm going to read the verse of the episode, and it's Matthew 6 verse 25. It says, "Therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Isn't life more than just food, and the body more than just clothing? Consider the birds in the sky. They don't sow or reap or gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth more than they? Can you add one moment to his lifespan by worrying?" It's been hard to accept that because I've been so in control of my life, but also I had to release control to God so that way he can provide for me, and it's just so much better. And I have this screensaver on my phone, God's plan versus my plan. And the reason why I chose this is because I have to remember to pull back on having control. It's just not healthy. It's just not worth it. Like, yes, I was able to be very successful on my own understanding, but it only lasts so much, or you're only able to hit so high. But God is limitless. And that's the beautiful thing about God, is that he is so limitless that you are able to excel in these amazing things if you just give everything to him. So the biggest thing that I want to take out of this today for you guys is that unlearning is a process, and unlearning can lead to heavy anxiety because you're like, wait, this is not the way it should have been. Wait, I've been doing it wrong this entire time. And if you're condemning on yourself like I am, please work on not being that way. It's not something I'm proud of. It's not something that I'm proud of because it makes me feel ungrateful. It makes me look ungrateful. And there's nothing good about being ungrateful. I'm remembering every day to put in my gratitude journal. When I walk into the office, I put into my gratitude journal the 3 things that I'm grateful for. And that way it will remind me, grateful, grateful, grateful. Please be grateful. And then when I get home, I have my journals and my prayer books that I write in. And then I write the 3 things that I'm grateful for of my day. And then I write my passage, and then I write my prayer. My passage is pretty much writing out how I felt throughout my day, what was going on, things that I need to release. And I realized that I have such a way of releasing that's not necessarily ideal. And I need to learn to be more transparent with God in my writing or in my prayer time, because yes, I have to worship him and love him and whatnot, but he knows my heart. He knows my heart better than I know my own heart. He knows my thoughts before I even know my thoughts. And I need to vocalize to him more what I want and what is on my heart so that there can be a transparent dialogue. I can't expect him to read my mind, even though I know he could read my mind, but I need to learn to verbalize it more. It needs to be understood that everything that I'm unlearning at this present time, I shouldn't be condemning myself for it, and nor should you. If this is a moment where you're trying to take in that you need to unlearn the certain things in your life that's stopping you from actually growing, then take a moment, assess what you need to unlearn, come up with that diagnosis of what it is, and then plan, intervene, and evaluate. Now, it is so hard because we tend to be so hard on ourselves, and then we get stuck in the diagnosis part, because that's what makes us so anxious, because it's the accountability and the revelation that I've been doing this wrong this entire time. But really, we have to get straight to the planning after that. And how do we get straight to the planning? We process those emotions as they come. Process those emotions. And the thing is that those emotions may never go, because there's so many things that you're going to unlearn. It's just, you got to start building resilience. And I've heard this from Evie Pamporas. She is by far, she's helping me stay grounded in my emotions. She's excellent at that. And I've been listening to her podcast, any podcast that she's on, pretty much talking about how important it is to be grounded in your emotions, and if you are in these heavy emotions, learn to process, be in it, process it, and then try to move on. Give yourself an expiry date. That is something I've said for such a long time. Give yourself an expiry date to process those emotions. And if it's taking too long to process, you have to ask yourself why. You have to reevaluate and ask yourself why. So yeah, if there's anything that I could share with you today in this episode, is I want you to be transparent with yourself. And what do you need to unlearn today? The call to action today is, what do you need to unlearn today, and how are you going to process it? And how long will you need to process it? And then once you've identified that, get to planning. Get to planning, and don't take too long to process. Understand what long is for you. And eventually it'll get easier and easier and easier, because you'll become more resilient. So without further ado, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for tuning into the Nomadic Nurse Podcast. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Please make sure to sign up for our newsletter. We're also starting to offer coaching classes. Yes, we are starting to offer coaching for anybody who is in the wellness field, in the healthcare field, who is looking to go into entrepreneurship, who's looking into recovering from burnout, who's looking to make a difference in this world. We are here to offer you a coaching and assistance and guidance for you, and ensure that you start your journey off on the right foot. So without further ado, take care. Bye.